Welcome back to TechPoint. Today we're going to check with the new i5-13400 and see what happens if we pair it with the RTX 3090 from the last generation of GPUs. And actually this is going to be a pretty good test just to figure out and see what's going to happen in the future when the 4070 is going to release, because it's probably going to be roughly at the same level of performance. Let's start. So it's time to begin, and the first part of every build is the motherboard, and we're going to use the MSI Z790 Tomahawk Wi-Fi in the DDR4 version. And this motherboard is going to be an overkill for this build anyway, but we wanted to still use the DDR4 version because, as we checked, and you can see in our other videos, DDR4 versus DDR5 doesn't give huge gains in gaming, and for this build we would like to keep the price as sane as possible. Just please keep in mind, this motherboard is certainly an overkill. I will say it again, for this build. Just make sure that you use a more proper motherboard for the price category and for this CPU, because it's way too much. We're going to start by putting the CPU in the socket. And now for the memory, we're going to use the Kingston Fury DDR4. It's a 32GB kit at 3600 MHz CL16. And as we said, DDR4 at this rate and speed is going to give great performance compared to DDR5, and it's way cheaper. Moving along to the storage, we're using the XPG S70 blade. It's a Gen 4 PCI Express drive, and NVMe drives are getting more affordable, so I don't really see any reason when you build a new PC today that you shouldn't go this route. And we can see here that even MSI are going with the quick latch system that lets you mount the NVMe without a screw. And also we're going to use the aluminum chunk that is over the NVMe to keep it cool, and this obviously comes with the motherboard. We're going air cooling on this build, and we're using the Dark Rock Fall from Be Quiet, and it's an overkill CPU cooler, and I'm trying to destroy it in a second, but ignore that. This CPU cooler is pretty amazing, but as you can see, it has some memory clearance issues, so make sure you have a compatible case. So let's talk about the case for this build. We're using the Antec DP505, and it's a pretty great value case. First of all, you can see we have the white version here, and all the screws of the side panels are captive screws, so you don't have to be afraid to lose them. They will stay in place while you handle the case. In the main chamber, we can see that Antec included a GPU bracket to prevent sag, and it's mounted on the back side of the motherboard tray, so it's not interfering visually, and it will even accommodate like a 7-slot card in the future, so you have no problem there. The front is full mesh, and there's no filter, but it's a fine mesh, so it should do some dust filtration. And in the front as well, you have 3 RGB fans pre-installed for your convenience. Moving along to the other side of the case, we can see all the cables are pre-routed, and you have a lot of spots to anchor any cable management that you would like to do. And also you get a nice controller for RGB and the fans. It can connect directly to the motherboard or be controlled via the button up the top of the case. And up the top you get a USB Type-C, 2 USB A's that are USB 3.0, a mic and audio jack, the LED control button, and the power switch. And down below, under the PSU shroud, you get the drive cage. You can install 2 3.5 drives, one in the plastic embrasure and one on top of the whole assembly. And in this utility box, you're going to get many screws and zip ties, and one of the coolest things here is you get these tiny screw pegs that you can install on your 2.5-inch drives, your SSD drives preferably, and mount them directly on the backside without any tools, and this makes this case support up to 4 drives in the back. Oh, and one more thing about the top of the case, the fan mounts are shifted towards the edge of the case, so you have better clearance for water cooling and RAM, and these pesky aluminum blocks that cool the VRMs, so this case takes care of it, and you probably won't encounter any issues while mounting water cooling up top, which is a great thing to see. So to power it all, we are going to use the Antec Neo Eco 750 Gold. It's a fully modular PSU and hopefully it can run the whole system with no issues. Oh, and one more nice thing about this power supply, of course it's 80 plus gold, but you get 7 years of warranty with this, so it's a great thing to see because it's gonna last you for a while. And everything is now in place. We have the power supply mounted on the bracket with all the cables we need, and we're just gonna slide it in and connect everything. But before that, I will mention that we have a very nice removable dust filter for the power supply. It's with a plastic frame, so you don't have to deal with all the meshy stuff that are stuck underneath with some clips. This is really easy to take out and clean and put back in. And to make the build even prettier, we're going to use these Antec extension cables. These are coming standard in a box, and they're pretty high quality. They're using good materials. The connectors are standard, so you can use it with every power supply unit you can think of, and you have a variety of colors you can choose from. And the only thing you have to do is to clip all the cable combs on the cables in the correct order, and you're good to go. The only thing I think is worth mentioning here is that this box contains a pretty limited amount of cables, so it's not going to fit like very high-end systems, but it's good for medium to low-end systems. You get a 4+4 or practically an 8-pin EPS cable, 2 8-pin PCI Express cables, and 2 6-pin PCI Express cables. So obviously if you are getting a very high-end system and you need more than 3 8-pins for your graphics card, you're going to miss one, but for our use today, it's fantastic. Next up, I'm going to mount the motherboard and obviously add a few fans. We're using the Antec Fusion 120 A-RGB fans, and these are new fans from Antec. They're pretty cheap. They're going to cost you around 60 bucks right now on Amazon, but this is on a tiny sale, and you get 5 RGB fans. They have an RGB ring and they feel extremely solid and pretty high quality for the price. And as I mentioned, you're getting 5 RGB fans with an extra controller, which is a pretty great deal. They come in white, they come in black, so you can match them for your build. And for the graphics card, we're using the RTX 3090 Founders Edition, and the reason we're taking this route is because it should roughly simulate how a 4070 or a 4060 Ti will perform, and it's a really nice card nonetheless. No one can counter that. And you can see again the tiny bracket that is pre-installed in the case, and it's helping to prevent the sag. It's very minimal, it's very useful, and I think more case manufacturers should go this route for anti-sag. And with everything in place, I think it would be a great time to go to a montage. Hit it! So we finished building. This is the Antec DP505. I don't think we said the model up until now, but I have to say this build was a delightful build. It was very easy to build in this case, and in general I think this build was very successful and I really like how it came out. So let's test a few games and see how it actually performs. So this is Doom Eternal. We're usually using this opening part for our benchmarks, and as we tested up until now, we get very nice results and we don't see any limitations or bottlenecks from this CPU. We tested this with previously with 13600K and the 13900K, but this is on par with the 13600K. So you can expect great performance in these types of games, and obviously we're running QHD 164 Hz on this Gigabyte monitor, and all the settings are on Ultra Nightmare, including ray tracing, so you can see all the tiny reflections everywhere and it works flawlessly, no dips in performance.
smooth as a baby's butt. In Cinebench R23 we can really see the difference between the higher tier 13600K versus this 13400F. To be honest, it's really expected. We only have 6 P cores with hyperthreading and 4 E cores on this CPU versus the 13600K that have 6 and 8, which has way more cores and also a bit higher clock speeds. So here we get roughly 15,800 or 15,900 score in Cinebench, and the R23 score for the 13600K is more like 24,000, and it's a very big difference. Hogwarts Legacy runs pretty much okay on this CPU and GPU combo. This game is pretty problematic. Right now we're in the academy and we're running 80-90 FPS. It's QHD, ultra settings, and RT is on with medium, and I think, you know, it's pretty good. It's pretty good, but this game is not really the benchmark for stable performance. Obviously, turning off ray tracing or activating DLSS will improve performance very much in this title, but it's not a bad result, and I think on ultra settings it's pretty acceptable. CSGO is a great CPU benchmark because it doesn't really require a very strong GPU, and we're using CSGO right now to test what's the difference between the 13400F and the 13600K, and the score for this test was 549 FPS compared to the 13600K that got 595 FPS. This is a pretty big difference, but it's most likely due to the higher clock speeds of the 13600K, and still 549 FPS average is a great score for the 13400 because, you know, you don't really have a monitor that can display such frame rates. It's really a great score. So this sums this build up. We really enjoyed building with the Antec DP505, and I think it's a very clean and nice build. The white color is very dominant, and I really like the way this build came out. All in all, the pricing of all these parts today is a bit insane, and you can't get the 3090, so we would probably suggest you guys go and get it with the 4070 Ti if you must. And obviously we saw that the 13400 is a great CPU that's not going to limit you. And please guys, we really enjoyed building this PC. Don't forget to put down in the comments what you liked about this build. If you like the case, it's probably new to you because you probably don't really know Antec as a brand. So leave a comment. If you like the video, leave a like, and we hope to do way more cooler and nicer builds. Coming up next is a full MSI higher end build with the 4080 and the 13700. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that, and I'll see you very soon. Bye bye.